How much pain can a person carry before it becomes too heavy to hide? How many times can someone forgive the same wounds before forgiveness itself feels like another prison? And when a voice that once sang for survival begins to sing for the world, does the world truly hear the truth behind the music, or only the melody it chooses to remember? These questions surround the life of Loretta Lynn, a woman whose story is as heartbreaking as it is inspiring. For over 70 years, she sang for America, becoming the undeniable queen of country music. Yet behind the stage lights and applause was a woman fighting for her life, her dignity, and her very sense of self against betrayals that came not from strangers, but from the men who should have been her protectors, friends, and family. At 90 years old, Loretta Lynn finally revealed the names of the 5 men who caused her deepest scars, not out of hatred, but as an act of liberation, a refusal to carry their shadows any longer. Loretta's beginning was far from glamorous. Born in a tiny wooden shack in Butcher Hollow, Kentucky, she was the second of 8 children in a coal miner's family. Poverty wasn't just something she knew. It was the air she breathed and the soil beneath her bare feet. Hunger was a constant guest at the dinner table, and silence was the language women often had to speak. The world she was born into was ruled by men, where the only choice given to women was endurance. Loretta grew up watching her mother bend under endless burdens and her father return home worn down from the mines. Life wasn't about dreams. It was about survival. And survival, in her world, often meant submission. At just 15 years old, Loretta married Oliver Doolittle Lynn, a man 9 years older who would forever shape her life in both extraordinary and devastating ways. For Loretta, marriage was not a romantic escape. It was the only path offered. By 18, she was a mother of 4, trapped in a marriage that was supposed to bring stability but instead brought violence, control, and a loneliness that no young girl should ever endure. The same man who introduced her to music, who placed a cheap guitar in her hands, also became her first prison. Loretta learned to sing not from joy but from desperation. That battered guitar became her lifeline, her secret weapon, her way of saying the things she could never speak aloud. Her earliest songs carried the hidden cries of women who had been silenced for generations. She sang of infidelity, control, abuse, and judgment in a way that no polished Nashville star dared to attempt. When Loretta sang, she wasn't just entertaining. She was revealing the unspoken truths of countless women whose voices had been drowned out. In smoky bars filled with strangers, she sang her pain into the microphone, and women in the crowd felt their own stories echo back at them. There was no glamour in those early days, only raw emotion and an honesty that couldn't be denied. Nashville was not ready for Loretta Lynn. While the industry polished its stars to fit an image of sweetness and obedience, Loretta refused to hide the truth. She wrote about birth control, cheating husbands, and domestic violence, topics considered scandalous at the time. Radio stations banned her songs. Critics accused her of being vulgar and unladylike. Yet she kept singing, kept writing, kept telling the truths that women were desperate to hear. For many, Loretta was more than a singer. She was a voice of defiance. But while her music gave courage to others, her personal life remained shrouded in torment. Doolittle Lynn, the man she married, the man who managed her career, was the first name on the list of betrayals that shaped her life. His abuse began on their honeymoon and continued relentlessly for decades. To the public, their marriage appeared as a love story, a partnership that launched a superstar. Behind closed doors, it was a nightmare. He hit her, manipulated her, and broke her spirit time and again, all while she smiled for the cameras. Loretta endured silently because silence was the only survival language she had been taught. She clung to the love songs she wrote for him as fragile lifelines, hoping music might transform his cruelty into tenderness. She spent nearly 50 years trying to save a marriage that was never truly hers to save. Even after his death, Loretta confessed that the pain lingered, that the first man she ever loved was also the first man she ever hated. But Doolittle was not the only one. Loretta's partnership with Conway Twitty seemed like a fresh chapter, a chance at respect and equality in music. Together, they created one of country's most celebrated duos. Their harmonies lit up charts, and fans adored their chemistry. Yet behind the curtain, Conway betrayed her in a different way. Instead of standing beside her as an equal, he used her success to elevate himself. He minimized her role, centered himself in their promotions, and publicly reduced her to the lady he had helped. During a live interview, he even claimed credit for reviving her career, a statement that cut Loretta deeply. That moment shattered her trust, proving once again that men around her could not resist taking what was hers and making it their own. Their partnership continued, but beneath the smiling photos and award-winning performances, resentment brewed quietly in Loretta's heart. Merle Haggard's betrayal was sharper still, because it came from someone she saw as a brother in country music. At a time when women were still fighting for basic respect in the industry, Loretta believed Merle to be an ally. But his mocking words, comparing her to a hen that crows on time, exposed the cruel undercurrent of sexism that even friends could not rise above. To fans, it was a joke, a harmless quip. To Loretta, it was humiliation, a public reminder that no matter her talent, her achievements or her fame, she was still just a woman to be belittled. She endured the insult with her familiar weapon of silence, swallowing her pain in the same way she always had, allowing the world to laugh while she quietly bled inside. And then came David Allan Coe. Outlaw by reputation, his rebellion was built on trampling respect and dignity, especially for women. At the height of Loretta's career, when she was preparing for one of the most important nights of her life, a Grammy nomination, Coe launched one of the cruelest attacks she had ever faced. He released an underground tape that twisted her own voice into grotesque parody, mocking her in vile and degrading ways. The timing was calculated, meant to strike when the spotlight was brightest. Loretta was forced to walk onto the Grammy stage that night with a painted smile, carrying a wound that the audience could not see. Her lawyer told her pursuing justice was pointless, that no one would stand with her publicly. Once again, she was forced to carry the humiliation alone. The attack was especially cruel because it came through music, the very thing that had always been her refuge. The fifth betrayal came from a man she admired, trusted, and believed would always stand beside her. Johnny Cash. Unlike the others, Johnny had been a kindred spirit. They fought the same battles against censorship, addiction, and conservative backlash. Loretta thought of him as family, a rare man in her life who understood her struggles. But when the industry began to blacklist her in the late 1990s, when ageism and sexism combined to push her aside, Johnny did not defend her. On television, he even suggested it was time for her to step back. For Loretta, that silence was the deepest wound of all. She had not expected fiery loyalty, only simple respect, a refusal to abandon her. His absence broke her heart in a way that no physical blow could. Quietly, she erased him from her life, mourning the brother she had once cherished. The story of these 5 men, Loretta Lynn, Conway Twitty, Merle Haggard, David Allan Coe, and Johnny Cash, reads like a catalogue of betrayal. One man's fists, another man's arrogance, another's jokes, another's cruelty, and another's silence all shaped the life of a woman who deserved better. Yet despite these betrayals, Loretta Lynn did not crumble. She turned every wound into a song, every scar into a verse. Her survival was not just personal. It was cultural. She became the voice for women who had none, the singer who gave words to pain that had been locked away for generations. Loretta Lynn's music was more than entertainment. It was testimony. Every lyric about cheating husbands, controlling men, and broken hearts carried pieces of her own life. Every time she sang about a woman demanding respect, it was her own voice demanding it in a world that refused to give it. She faced bans, boycotts and blacklists, but she never stopped singing. Her defiance was quiet but unyielding. Even when she stood alone, she refused to let silence swallow her completely. Her legacy is not defined by the men who tried to break her, but by the strength with which she rose above them. She transformed betrayal into ballads, turned scars into songs, and made silence itself into survival. While men tried to claim her spotlight or diminish her worth, she built a throne as the queen of country music. She paid a heavy price, her innocence, her trust, her peace. But from that price came a power that changed the face of country music forever. Loretta Lynn's story is not just her own. It belongs to every woman who found courage in her voice, who recognized her own pain in Loretta's lyrics, and who learned from her that survival is a song worth singing. So the next time you hear a Loretta Lynn song, remember the weight behind those words. They are not just melodies or rhymes. They are pieces of a woman's life, forged in hardship, betrayal, and courage. Loretta taught us that even in the darkest silence, a voice can rise and refuse to be broken. And that is a legacy no betrayal can erase. Thank you for staying with me through this story of Loretta Lynn's strength and survival. If you found this video meaningful, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories about the lives behind the legends.